China's lockdown model is so draconian it beggars belief. Should it be regarded then as a cautionary tale or a potential pilot model? Hello there, you 5.5 million awakening wonders. Together we walk tall with a light in our hearts, a light here between our eyes, burning ever brighter as we arrive at mutual truths together. If you want to come and see me live, you can. There's a few tickets left. We've released more tickets, standing room only. Link in the description. Come see me. At the end, I'll show you how to follow me on my mailing list, be a part of my community so I can talk to you directly. Most importantly of all, though, let's get into this story. Do you want to know what's going on in China? You've seen the wailing towers, that haunting, eerie image of people crying out. You'll have heard by now that there are drones flying overhead saying, "Curb your soul's desire for freedom." Let's have a look at the story in more detail, because obviously what happens in China affects the people of China. That's terrible enough. But some people are concerned that Western leaders look with envious eyes upon the Chinese ability to control dissent. In China, nearly 400 million people are now living under a full or partial lockdown as China attempts to stop the spread of COVID-19. In Shanghai, local authorities have reported the deaths of 3 people with COVID. The result has been a humanitarian debacle as residents run short of food and medicine while delivery services fail to keep up. You do need to keep a broader perspective in mind when trying to protect a population. We must protect the population of China at all costs. All right, don't let anyone go out. That way, they'll be totally risk-free. Yeah, when they can't go out, they can't get any dinner. Every decision made at the level of the individual, let alone at the level of a nation, has to take into account numerous vectors. What's best for mental health? What's best for the whole population? What's sensible? What's moral? What's ethical? What's in alignment with the will of the population? I guess that's why democracy, true democracy, works. You'd say, what do you guys want? Well, we in this region want this, we in this region want that. The minute you start taking away people's personal liberty, it starts to look like that was always the goal rather than what you said was the goal in the first place.
2 years into the pandemic,
let's get them spider plants done. They could be COVID-y.
There is no easing up on zero COVID here.
Residents being forcefully removed from their homes to be taken to overcrowded quarantine centers that look nothing like the spacious, highly sanitized buildings presented to the media.
When you see someone being forcefully removed from their home by people in a hazmat suit, I feel things have gone too far. I can't yet imagine what kind of threat would warrant that level of state intervention. In fact, one of the few things I can imagine is that itself. That is what requires a sort of an extreme response. Disobedience, withdrawal from the system. China, of course, operates under different philosophical and political models than, like, you know, England, Canada, America, France, you know, like all over the world. It's different, in a sense, there's a distinct history in loads and loads of ways. But when it comes to governance and the ability to exert power over a population, my hope is that China is seen as a cautionary tale, a warning.
Public officials blast those who venture out. Supermarkets are shut, restaurants closed, and people are getting desperate for food.
That's like trying to solve the problem of a headache by cutting off your head. The cure is worse than the problem. Surely people can see that. I feel what we're being provided with now are the building blocks towards a dystopia. If you're about my age, you've watched a bunch of sci-fi stuff where you see anonymous, androgynous, fully cloaked figures in masks taking over society, android figures dominating the population, dehumanization at scale. And you think, well, how do we get there? It doesn't look like that where I live, either you live in a nice town or a big city or a rural area. But once you start seeing folk in the hazmat suits ghosting in and dragging people off and spraying stuff down, you can see the interstitial steps between where we are at the moment and where we may end up without mindful resistance, a centralized technocratic dystopia where all power is held by a sort of a combination of corporate and state interests.
But for some it was just too much. Their homes sequestered, their desperation easy for all to hear.
I suppose what I'd want if I was in China is, look, the worst case scenario is if we don't do anything at all, these people are going to get COVID and this portion of the population are probably going to die. So what do you want to do as a population? Let's have an election on it. And presumably then there will be lots of protection offered to the most vulnerable people, and the majority of people would be able to carry on with some semblance of normality. You could even have regionalised democracy where some people went, no, we're down for it. We want the hazmat suit version where you take our pets. Here are our pets. Take my children. Separate me from them. Some people might want that. And if they democratically vote for that, I would, it'd be none of my business. But when people have that imposed on them, you can't avoid the conclusion that that's tyranny. And you simply have to acknowledge that there have been instances in the last couple of years where we have emulated Chinese models. And I'd hate to envisage that being possible or conceived of, even dreamed of in Western countries or, countries outside of China, wherever they happen to be. So when you see stuff like digital IDs being introduced, new laws being introduced, anti-protest, more surveillance. What direction do you think you're moving in with those kind of measures? I'm not saying that we're there yet, that's horrific, but which direction are we heading in? That's the question. This is from the Wall Street Journal. 2 years ago, China's aggressive COVID suppression was presented as a model for Western governments. This is an embarrassment for many Western commentators, public health officials and CEOs. For many years, a prominent school of thought held that China's authoritarian system produced better governance by making hard but correct policy decisions that elude democratic leaders. If you just get democracy out of the way, this becomes a lot easier. This supposedly made China a safer place to invest and more recently led some bureaucrats to idealise Beijing's 2020 COVID lockdown in Wuhan. Social media posts suggest some citizens are starting to wonder if Beijing's COVID cure is worse than the disease. Those pictures may seem to present a radically different approach to coronavirus, but we've already heard that some people look admiringly at those measures. We on this channel now invite you to consider, in both territories, China and the rest of the world's nations, what has been the attitude to shutting down dissent. In your country, have you noticed attempts to shut down dissent, conversation? Have you noticed an increase in surveillance? So, forget the pictures for a moment, the hazmat suits and the dystopian sci-fi horror. Consider this. Where you live, are there measures being introduced to prevent online dissent, the use of particular type of language? And ask yourself, are we seeing a move towards authoritarianism and measures that are introduced to shut down dissent wherever it may appear? This is by Jay Bhattacharya, Professor of Health Policy, Stanford University School of Medicine. What does he know? Remember when we were told that China was a model for the world in controlling COVID? Sure, as a totalitarian state, it was able to world people inside their homes and monitor its citizens via drone. But many in the West believed that such measures were necessary. They argued that the abandonment of personal liberty was an appropriate way to fight a respiratory virus. Now Shanghai is the model for the terrifying dangers of giving dictatorial powers to public health officials. Have you noticed in your country, whether it's America, Australia, France, Senegal, wherever you are in the world, have you noticed public health officials being given new powers, often underwritten by science, but elsewhere on this channel you'll see videos that query the objectivity of science and where that science may have come from, and in particular the shutting down of dissenting voices, also from legitimate scientific fields. The harrowing situation unfolding there is a testament to the folly of a virus containment strategy that relies on lockdown. For 2 weeks, the Chinese government has locked nearly 25 million people in their homes, forcibly separated children from their parents, killed family pets, and limited access to food and life-saving medical care, all to no avail. COVID cases are still rising, yet the delusion of suppressing COVID persists. If the measures aren't working, why continue with those measures? Is there another reason? Comments. In America, many of our officials still have not abandoned their delusions about COVID and the exercise of power this crisis has allowed. As the Shanghai debacle demonstrates, of all the many terrible consequences of our public health response to COVID, the stifling of dissenting scientific viewpoints by the state might be the most dangerous. I would know. For the past 2 years, I've been the target of a smear campaign aimed at demonising those who dare to question official policy. This is the author, not me. In October 2020, I, along with colleagues Sunetra Gupta of Oxford and Martin Kulldorff, then of Harvard, issued an open letter called the Great Barrington Declaration. Now, I know loads of you will have heard of that, loads of you have been talking about that. Hit me up in the comments below if you heard of this a while ago. In it, we expressed deep concern about the damage caused by the international public health response to COVID through sweeping lockdowns, school shutdowns, business closures, and more. We urged a nuanced approach that focused on protecting those most vulnerable to COVID, primarily the elderly and those with certain comorbidities, and returning to normal life those more harmed by lockdowns than by the disease. The people that made this Barrington Declaration, they're hardly renegade outlaws from outside the system. Martin Kulldorff of Harvard. Harvard? Those punks! Suneptra Gupta of Oxford. Oxford University? Those ne'er-do-wells. And look at the man himself, Professor of Public Health Policy, Stanford University School of Medicine. Hey baby, I'm free like the wind. Here at the Stanford School of Medicine, we just say first thing that comes into our head. Protect people with comorbidities. And protect the elderly. You madcap goon, there's no way in hell you're going out with any daughter of mine on that motorcycle. You might not agree with those institutions of learning, but they are institutions of learning, aren't they? You can't say that it's just like David Icke, Alex Jones, and a bloke I met down the pub. Nearly 1 million people have signed our letter, including tens of thousands of doctors and scientists from over 40 countries. Do you remember when they were trying to get Joe Rogan off the air? They'd let vets sign things. Oh shit, I've got to cure this hamster. There, fuck off, Joe Rogan. Now, when it comes to having a decent conversation, an open conversation about a more measured, precise, bespoke, tailored response to coronavirus, these dudes from Oxford and Yale and Stanford can't get a word in. In other words, we were far from alone in our belief that this was the proper response to an unprecedented pandemic. Now, I know loads of you were saying, why is dissent being stifled? Why can't we have an open conversation about this? Is there some conspiracy? Why can't we have an honest conversation? If you don't allow freedom of speech, people start to think it's because you're trying to control the argument. If you're trying to control the argument, people imagine it's because you've got a preferred outcome. If you've got a preferred outcome that doesn't make sense in alignment with the knowledge that's explicit, people start to think there's a hidden agenda, aka conspiracy. So I think the people that are responsible for what they call conspiracy theories are the people that are suppressing the information, controlling the conversation. But the official response was swift and brutal. 4 days after we published the Great Barrington Declaration, Francis Collins, then director of the National Institute of Health, wrote an email to Anthony Fauci, I've heard of him, calling the three of us fringe epidemiologists. We're fringe out of Harvard. Sometimes my mum and dad say I've got to be back by 10. I don't roll until 10:30, 10:45. He called for a press takedown of us when an open discussion of ideas would have been more productive. That's what happened across all social media platforms. Conversation was shut down. Warnings, COVID warning, are you telling the truth warning? Here's a Wikipedia page. All this stuff went down when these people were legit scientists trying to have an honest conversation who may yet prove to be correct. Big tech outlets like Facebook and Google followed suit, suppressing our ideas, falsely deeming them misinformation. I started getting calls from reporters asking me why I wanted to let the virus rip when I had proposed nothing of the sort. I was the target of racist attacks and death threats, which I thought we were against. Despite the false, defamatory and sometimes frightening attacks, we stood firm. And today, many of our positions have been amply vindicated. Yet the soul-searching this episode should have caused among public health officials has largely failed to occur. Once again, the idea of the soul comes up. Whether it's the Chinese drones telling you to suppress your soul, we should be looking inside ourselves, outside of ourselves, looking at the data outside and the data inside, our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings. And between these sets of data, coming to conclusions that are suitable for a varying range of human beings. Instead of creating conflict and conflagration among normal people who actually don't have any power at all, should be saying, well, I don't know, some people reckon let's protect the vulnerable. Some people say let's shut down everything. What do you want? Instead of getting people so terrified no one can think straight, instead of shutting down dissent to the degree where there is no communication, just fear, suspicion and doubt, almost as if fear, suspicion and doubt were the desired outcomes all along. Instead, the lesson seems to be dissent at your own risk. Well, that perhaps was always the intended lesson. I do not practice medicine. I am a professor specialising in epidemiology and health policy at Stanford Medical School. He's exhausted, isn't he, this geezer? I'm going to tell you once more. I'm a professor of epidemiology at Stanford. I didn't get it by doing under-the-table favours. I've spent my life studying this stuff, waiting for a chance to share this knowledge. And when it came, shut up, you're ruining things. But many friends who do practice have told me how they have censored their thoughts about COVID lockdowns, vaccines, and recommended treatment to avoid the mob. Though Stanford is supposedly a bastion of academic freedom, one junior untenured professor recently wrote to me, "I've heard you several times on television regarding the COVID issue and find myself resonating with your views. I'm inclined to express those very same opinions to my colleagues and administrative members at Stanford. I've been reluctant today because, quite honestly, I expect that my faculty appointment would not be renewed. I have the perception that free speech is just not there." Well, do you have the perception that free speech is just not there? Do you sense that surveillance is increasing, that dissent is being shut down? Are you beginning to think that the horrifying spectre of China could suddenly become replicated elsewhere in the world? What are your concerns? My personal belief is that in the realm of science, if it's going to be worthy of that name, we should allow open and transparent discourse from a variety of opinions so we can compare varying data, come to healthy conclusions. That instead of suppressing our soul's desire for freedom, we should express it, understand it, release it. That we should be looking inside ourselves and one another, metaphorically, to discover what the truth is. We should not be shutting down dissent. We need dissent. Freedom comes from dissent. I don't even fully know what I believe in until people hit me back with the potential consequence. If you do that, Russell, this will happen. If you say that to people, what if they think that? Have you considered these people? How are people that aren't able to do that going to feel when it helps me to learn, it helps me to understand. It's why our channel has grown, because of you, because of your dissent, because of your understanding. So hit us up in the comments below, even if it's to tell us that we're wrong, especially if it's to tell us that we're wrong, especially if it's to tell us there's stuff that we've missed, because we're human like you, and like you, we want a better world, and like you, we believe it's possible, and like you, we know it will not happen without transparency, dissent, freedom, our founding principles as individuals, as nations, as a planet, reaching out for harmony together, although I will specify decentralized with localized democracies, and I'm going to go through that in the comments again. All right, you guys, I love you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one or this one. Sign up to my mailing list so I can communicate with you directly. All sorts of exciting stuff's coming. An event with Wim Hof, a one-day event that you'll only get tickets to if you're on the mailing list. So much to share, so much to tell you about, so much to be hopeful about. So do not lose hope. But more importantly than that, please stay free.